All right. Hello there. Welcome back to another Majestic devlog. It's been a little while. The last devlog was the end of May. These devlogs do not get too many views, so I've been holding off on putting more of these out. The last devlog got less than 100 views, and it's just not a good use of my time. But I've been making a lot of progress, and I wanted to put a little update out there on where the project stands. So here we are. I've been working on Act 4 of the game. If you're new here, this is your first time watching, and that really doesn't mean much to you. My game is a narrative-driven game, and it takes place over the course of 5 acts, similar to a game I released in 2021 called The Companion. And each act is its own level, and each level takes a couple hours to complete. So it's a 10-plus hour game. The first couple acts of the game took 3 years to complete. I was building out all the systems, and just it took a little while to get to a point where I can finally just crank out the content of the game. Most of this year, 2025, that's what I've been working on, trying to get to a point where I can start at the main menu and play all the way to the credits. So, a little history: the game started off being built from Act 2, and then after 2 years, I was at a good place where I began Act 1. Act 1 took me a year to build out. Then I went back to Act 2 and fixed things and polished that based on learnings from Act 1. And then starting in April, I began Act 3. The goal was to get done Act 3 and Act 4 in 2025. So increasing my development pace from like 1 act in 2 years, 1 act in 1 year, now doing 2 acts in 1 year. And because I started Act 3 in April, Act 3 took about approximately 6 months for Act 3. There was a lot of big things in Act 3. It took me a little longer than anticipated. I was hoping to get it done in around 3 or 4 months, but there were some big challenges, a lot of large story beats. And I'm actually pretty excited about Act 3. I think I did a lot of cool things. I look forward to seeing what people think about it. It really flips the story on its head, I think, but who knows? Hard to say until the players get in there and give their feedback. But now I'm in Act 4, and this is not the beginning of Act 4, but this level I'm showing off right here is it's where the game takes a little darker turn. You can tell the landscape is more jagged. This is a nighttime right now. There's some things in this level that are more on the darker side of things, and I think that's a good switch up from the rest of the game, which is a little more hopeful and cheery. A few of the hooks of my game are it's a like story rich, story driven, narrative driven game. Along with that, it's open world, so you're not limited to following a certain path. You can go around in a random order and unlock story beats and see what's going on. I think one of the more exciting parts of my game is you play as a golden eagle character from the spirit realm, and you're flying around. So you're not limited to ground-based travel. You're flying overhead. So everything has to look good from the air, which is something I focus on. There's some puzzles mixed in here and there, but largely it's figuring out the story and what's going on in this world. It's an immersive game. The type of games I make are immersive, and that's focusing on story, sound, effects, visuals, voiceover, music. That's the type of games I like to make. I've always been someone that's liked just being immersed in a world, so that's what I'm making, an immersive type of game. And I've always liked having the freedom to visit anywhere that I can see. So these levels are quite large. As you can see, flying around, it's covering quite a bit of ground, going very fast, much faster than ground-based travel. There are limits to the levels. I can't make a limitless world, and breaking up the game into acts allows me to take the player to a lot of cool-looking locations that are varied in style and visuals. The distant mountains, I cannot fly to them. There's a soft border in place. If you cross the boundary, the game puts you back into the playable area of the game. The streaming in and out of the world is because I have not built HLODs for the level yet, so it's just streaming in and out parts of the world right now based on where I'm at. And I have identifiers that show things to visit. Now, these ones down here are just little NPC animals that are in the level, and I can go up to one and become a friend with it, which just a little fun little thing to do. I guess the core of the game is to collect essence. It's the main resource that's used for finding objectives, and enemies that you may fight will drain your essence. So it's the main resource. There's just one resource to keep track of for the most part. And this eagle character does have abilities, and these are like light-based abilities, which will help fend off darkness. So my game has a big theme of light versus dark. The concept is that these characters, the animal characters, are from a spirit realm and are an apparition of the main characters that the story is based on. So, for example, I'm playing as this eagle character, and this eagle character is the apparition of the main story character. I think some unique aspects of what I try to do with my story is it's a little bit of a puzzle. So these large beams of light signify a major story beat and clue me in on some of the things that are taking place with the main characters. And then what I try to convey here is that there's things taking place in both realms simultaneously by the spirit characters, the corporeal characters, and sometimes their actions are in parallel to each other. So it's a fun little twist trying to tell this story with a bit of duality, parallelization, and I think this last story beat that I just finished is a big example of one of them, and I'm going to dive into that in a little bit. I've not really shown off my process on the creating the story for this game and why creating this game is taking me so long. That's just a bit of background on the game, what I'm shooting for, and my first game was a big test on if this type of game would work. In a way, the first game was my like vertical slice to seeing if this could be successful. And for the most part, my first game was successful. It did not have any sort of huge outbreak, but it has made over 6 figures gross. And for a game that only took 10 months to create, I think that's pretty successful in my opinion. And this game builds off that with the same characters and just expands the cast, expands the story, and everything is much bigger. I'm building this not to be a sequel, but to be more of a companion to the other game. They're the same world, and you just learn more about all of the characters and the world by playing each game. And there are some references calling back to my first game, but they're not critical to where it's something you need to know. I think that would be kind of unfair. However, players of my first game may appreciate some callbacks, so I'm throwing them in as little Easter eggs here and there for the players that enjoyed my first game. So getting down to what each act entails, as I said, there's 5 acts for the game. Within each act, there are 10 story beats. On top of that, there are around 5 optional like puzzle things and 5 little extra cinematics, and then 5 other objectives to find. But the story beats are the main driver of the game. These beams of light, I guess nowadays I'm calling them sky beams because that's what my composer liked to call them, and I thought that was a good way to explain them. But I had to figure out a lot of solutions to this open world flying type game because I don't want players lost in a massive level. That would not do. There's a lot of hand-holding, but I think it's out of necessity. I don't want there to be frustration. I want there to be a solid progression throughout the game, and essence is used to spawn a little helper that takes them to the next objective. So in a way, collecting essence will help progress through the game. But each level does take me quite a while, and I'm on a fairly quick pace right now with Act 4, 2 months in, and I'm already done the 4th story beat. So I have 6 to go, plus a little finale. Each act has an introduction cinematic and story beat, and a finale cinematic story beat. So really there's about 12 large story beats per level, and cumulatively it's going to be a couple hours of cinematics at the end of the day. Right now each level has about 25 to 30 or 40 minutes of cinematics. The beginning of the game, the first couple acts, the cinematics are quicker paced, taking up 25 to 35 minutes total. For 10 of them, that's like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes average. For the beginning, I want the player to swiftly get involved with the story and invested and figure out what's going on a little quicker. Then in Act 3, things draw out a little longer. I have one major story beat that's 8 minutes long, one of the major ones. I still try to throw in some shorter ones, and then there are some longer ones. And then there's a couple big story beats in each level that take player input into account. There's like events and tasks to do within the story. And these are the ones that take quite a while to develop. It's not just a cinematic, it's also an event, and a lot of it requires some custom technology to develop to incorporate into the thing. And that's this one here has a lot of that. Actually, I just got done a big tech thing, developing quite a bit of stuff to finish this one off. I'm hoping by year end Act 4 will be close to complete. That'll give it 4 months development time, which will be the quickest so far, since Act 3 took 6 months, and that will also put the game at 4 months of development. I started development of January 2022, all of 22, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm hoping in 2026 to finish off Act 5. Then I will probably incorporate an epilogue to the game just to have one final conclusion. So technically a 6th level, but it will be lighter, smaller type level just to wrap some things up. It might be like quarter of a level or something. So maybe a couple months to do like an epilogue. So by June, I'm thinking the game, the main story will be implemented, and that will be quite the milestone. I think then I'll be able to play it front to back from main menu to credits and then really start polishing it up. Then there will be a couple months to flesh out the final optional things, the little puzzles and things. There aren't too many, but it will take maybe 2 to 3 months to finish those up. So now we're into September with all of the objectives in place. And then at that point, the last quarter of 2026 is polish, performance, readying for release. I will most likely do Next Fest in February 2027, and then based on feedback, comments, reception, all that stuff, spend another 2 to 3 months fixing based on feedback, and then release is looking to be perhaps May 2027. That is the current roadmap of the game, and May is a significant date because it follows the release of my first game, which is The Companion. It released May 13th, 2021. I may shoot for May 13th, 2027, which is a Thursday. Right now, tentatively, that will be, I think, my release date. A lot can change, so don't hold me to it, but that's what I'm projected to do right now. I like following patterns, and that would be a cool pattern, I think. Now, there are a lot of other things to do. So voiceover, I've recorded voiceover for one level as a test. That's a big action still on the agenda. That's in those later months. So as I do each story beat, The script is still being fine-tuned and polished, and I have the whole story roughed in, but the dialogue, I spend tons and tons of time on every single line of dialogue, trying to make it as good as can be, just feeling good for the moment. The script has already undergone revisions over and over, and then as I get to each story and I know how things are progressing with the cinematics, I do another pass as I'm working on each story beat. I just spend so much time on every piece of dialogue. I want things to feel meaningful, not waste the player's time. Every line I want to be worth speaking. I don't want to have just wasted or filler dialogue. I want the player to be clued in on the emotions and the weight of the scene. So the script is really my game development document here, and it outlines a lot of what's going on, and I build the game around it. Getting back to the roadmap, some big ticket items are voiceover, recording the rest of the script, and it really does take me a lot of time for voiceover. I need to hire out the voice actors, send them their parts to record, get the recordings back. Then I go in and usually I'll get multiple takes per line of dialogue, so I have to hone in on the best takes. Some dialogue needs additional effects like reverb and stuff if it needs to sound a little different, if it's a spiritual character voice or something of that nature, then it needs some sound effects added to it. It takes me a little while to just edit the dialogue, export each section to sound files, bring them into the game, then use that dialogue within the cinematics and areas where dialogue is spoken. I have it set up so it shouldn't take too long, but there is a process. It's going to take quite a bit to implement, and I'm basically waiting on recording until the script is finally locked, which means getting all the way to the end of development of the story, and I've played through it multiple times, and I'm happy with every piece of dialogue. At that point, I'll be happy to send off the script pages to the actors that I've chosen. Hopefully they'll still be available to record again, or I'll be doing re-records for Act 2, which is right now the level that has recordings done. It'll be 3 or so years since I've recorded Act 2, so the actors, you never know. Some of them may have moved on from voice acting. It's one of my worries, but hopefully they'll all be available and willing to finish off this game with me. And then on top of voice acting, there's still music to do, and I'm hoping the composer that did the companion is still willing to record this many years later and create new music for the Majestic. The music currently in this game is from the companion, just more or less as placeholder. Maybe some will be reused, hard to say. It will be a conversation with my composer. Right now, no music has been developed. Hopefully that will change kind of soon. Music and voice acting are the two largest expenses, I guess, on top of localization. So voice acting, localization, and music are 3 big expenses that I'm just saving to the end. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pay for each thing yet. I've contemplated Kickstarter. It just does not excite me too much to do a Kickstarter, as it will take away from development time of the game. Since this game's already so far in and taken so long, I would rather not delay for something like that, but it may be necessity to do that. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Localization for the companion was the most expensive thing. I just really wanted the professionally done localization, and it was the most expensive aspect of the game. And this game, the script is like 3 or 4 times larger, so it's might be an even larger expense, which, you know, there are options to just not localize to as many languages, possibly crowdsourcing localization. I know there's the possibility of like AI, but I don't think AI could do the greatest job just due to some of the themes in the game, how it's more fantasy and mystical and spiritual, and I feel like there can be a easy loss in translation type of thing trying to use AI, and And then it's, right now the game, I'm not using AI for art or anything. I use it for coding assistance here and there if I need help with like trying to figure something out. And I would hate to have to put like AI assisted on the game's thing in Steam just because of localization. And I just feel like it wouldn't do a very good job. And that's the main thing. You don't want bad localization. I've spending so much time on the game. You don't want to fail at the finish line basically. So it's really not an option, but there are other options. I've seen the crowdsourcing sites for it and volunteers and stuff to help out. It might just be one of those types of deals. Maybe I try to get some of the major languages. I do have statistics from the companion on like the most popular languages, and I could maybe localize those and not do as many. I think in the companion I had like 11, 12, maybe 13 languages. So it was quite a lot. So yeah, there's some expenses to come. Right now, the game has been fairly inexpensive, I would say, as it's just me with recording some VO. I guess the last big thing that needs to be done, I've created a trailer in like year 1 or 2 of building the game, and it really focuses on just like the first act I was working on. I need to do an actual like official new trailer for the game, and I want to start that in 2026. And it'll probably take like 10 months before there's a trailer that's good and completed and has like custom music and everything. So that's another thing in 2026 to start working on. I have a plan to, once I'm in Act 5, I'm going to work on the things I want in a trailer. I'll have the majority of the game like built out, so I'll just need a couple clips from Act 5, and then I can just start fine tuning a trailer and working on it off and on whenever I need a little break from game dev. Speaking of, like, it should be noted that I do work on it every single day. However, it's one of those things where I have a family and 4 kids and full-time job. So what I'm doing is every single day I just wake up before everybody else and work on the game, and I can get a couple hours of development in. But for the most part, yeah, I'm putting in about 20 hours a week into the game. On weekends, I work on it a bit longer. Whereas with my first game, I was spending quite a bit more time. It was a sprint the entire time. It took me 10 months, which is a long time, but I was putting in like 4 hours a day. My kids were much younger. Now they're at an age where we do a lot of stuff. So the first game, I was, able to just work on it a lot more each day. That's kind of the plan and roadmap. Let me show what's going on here with this latest story beat, and I'll try to explain maybe some stuff. I haven't really done this before, so what I'm going to do is play the game in the editor. So performance won't be the greatest, and there'll be stuff streaming and popping in and stuff. All that'll get cleaned up in the future. Also, I should mention, I know there's a lot of commentary out there about Unreal Engine being not being the greatest with performance and stuff. It is a worry of mine. Performance has been a main thing for this game for a long time, but I do think I can get it to a point where it will work on a lot of machines and devices. My goal is to get it to work on a Steam Deck, and if I can do that, then it should basically be good enough to be played anywhere. And since the game is going to be released in 2027, hopefully, there will be more and more optimizations taking place that will just make it more performant. I started this game when Unreal 5 was in preview mode, and it's progressed very far since then. I've seen the performance get better and better, and I think by the time it's released, it will be in a great spot. They keep working on the new technology, which is good, because like everybody else, I do believe that's a lot of the main performance issues. It's the Lumen, the Nanite, the runtime virtual texturing, like all that stuff is a lot of the main performance stuff, and they are working on just keep making it better and better. I do believe it is the future of the technology, and I just think a lot of games used it too early and released too early. by the time, I think it'll be in a mature, much more mature state by the time my game releases. So I'm continuing on that path, but I do support the older rendering techniques without nanite and all that. Since I want this to be playable on a mobile device like the Steam Deck, that does mean supporting the older hardware and not having those newer technologies. So I'll have options for all that stuff for it to be performant on most systems. That's the goal anyway. That's also an area I might need assistance with. We'll see when the time comes. So let me just turn on the audio of the game, and I'll try to explain what's happening here, and then dive into some of the new tech and challenges that I had to develop specifically for this story beat. So we're in Act 4, and I have some abilities. I have this light attack ability. I have a dart, like speed up ability, and I have an ability here. If I press and hold E, it kind of casts a large AoE attack ability. So something like that. With that said, I come up to this moment in time and just click on this. So now we're transported to a moment in time. We'll see some of the main characters, two sisters, Jess and Daisy. They're on horseback, riding through these darkened lands, and they possess a fragment of light, which is one of the things that are going to keep them safe against darkness. And they're on a little adventure that it was Jess's idea. She's on this mission to fend off darkness. They both have that mission in a different ways. Jess does it in a more mystical sense, and Daisy's doing it in a more practical sense. They come upon a tree which is in complete darkness, and this larger type tree is like the usually found with life and light. So they are concerned that the tree has been snuffed out by darkness. While they are here, their apparitions in the distance there's a wolf and a fox and an eagle, and these are the apparitions of the main characters. The wolf is the brother, and the fox is Daisy, and the eagle is Jess. So their spiritual apparitions are also upon the same tree. These apparitions are also looking at the tree. They sense this tree is filled with darkness. So one of the events I wanted to incorporate was having them vanquish the darkness from this tree and to bring back its life force. So this was some new tech here to have these swarms of like enemies. I have the other two apparitions, the wolf and the fox. They kind of dart around and cast abilities that help vanquish these enemies here. And the main goal is to basically use the large area of attack ability, which will, get rid of a lot of them. And if they touch your character, then you'll lose essence. So you kind of want to avoid that. So there I just lost some essence. You don't really want to go to 0 because it just delays your ability to progress in the game a little bit. In general, the combat is not like skill-based or super action-packed. It's more like an immersive type thing. I just want you to feel involved in the story. But creating these swarms of enemies took me a little bit. They are based on particles, Niagara particles. I haven't really done like a swarm of enemies before. I felt this might be like the best way, was using particles to simulate enemies. So their animations are material based, running on the GPU, which keeps it pretty quick. So there's hundreds, could be up to thousands of these floating enemies. Now we're halfway through the objective and the tree is coming to life. We're ridding the darkness. Having the other characters run around as AI and cast abilities and talk and stuff. That was all additional tech as well. I had to build that out. So I've lost a lot of essence. I'm down to 4 from like 20. I was in the middle of a huge swarm. But you can see the tree has like leaves again. It's pretty bright. So really the major threat here is you run out of time and have to do it all again. There's no threat of dying. I don't have death in this game. You just lose essence, which delays your progress. You might run out of time, which means you have to redo the event. Those are the main threats of failure. Other 2 characters are helping you progress to the 1,000 kill mark. I just thought 1,000 was a nice number. Each level, the objectives get higher and higher. Act 2, it's like I had a kill 50 event. In Act 3, I had a kill 500 event. And now in Act 4, there's this kill 1,000 event. But I never wanted to take too long. I just wanted to show, like, as you progress, you're definitely killing more things kind of in the same time or, you know, quicker. So here we're almost at the end, and we've restored the light to this tree. It took about 5 minutes. So now we come back to our corporeal friends here, Jess and Daisy. It's a little bit of a flashback in time, and this is the parallel story beats between the realms that I'm shooting for, where the spirits are fighting the darkness head on. But here, these characters are using this mystical gem, and she thinks she can bring back the light of the tree with this gem. So the questions that I'm raising here are, how is darkness really being vanquished? Is it with this fragment, or is it with the spirits, or is it both of them simultaneously doing things in a connected way where through the realms you're all linked and all actions are working together? So they brought back the life of the tree as well. There are a few little visual hiccups here and there that I need to tweak out and polish, but because of the 5-minute combat sequence, it took close to 10 minutes for that whole thing to play out, and we're left with this glowing tree in the level. And I have it so it should save like that. When I save the game and load back in, it should continue to radiate. And I have the skybeam here turns like a bluish glow, meaning it's been done and completed. I can go back to it and do it again if I just wanted to. There's no real purpose, but part of my game is keeping things open and free and allowing the player to do whatever they want. So getting back to some of the tech parts, this will just be, if I go to my test level here, I have some tests set up, and I'll just show some of the behind the scenes. I have main enemies in my game. I just call them Darkness. I don't really put a specific other type name because this was like a new thing and I needed to distinguish it. And there's a lot of them. I just called it Darklings, sticking with the dark theme. And it's a particle effect. So here they are. So I have this is the entities, and this emitter. All of these will follow the player character and try to steal your essence. All of these will attract to one of the other friendly spirits, just to have enemies attacking more than one person. And there's they have to be CPU bound because they have collision and they're generating events and stuff. So it's a CPU based particle emitter. It just keeps creating them. They live infinitely. I need to add a limit to where the emitter stops after a certain number of entities are in the world. If I was to crank this up to 200, now we have quite a few. I think it starts slowing down when there's like 4,000 of them. Spawn rate of like 2 is what I have it set at right now, and it doesn't get that high that quickly, and it's pretty throttled, but it still looks like, you know, it seems like a decent amount during the event that we just did, so that's where it's at right now. Then each enemy has some particles that are coming off of it, just little ghostly type particles. These trigger some events that these use to spawn more particles, and quite a few particles here being spawned, 1,000 plus range for not too many enemies. And then when they die, there's a little burst that plays. So this uses a death event to play a little particle effect. It spawns 25 particles upon each death of the other particle. So that's how the particles work. And then within the blueprint, it's sending the data through the export to particle data blueprint here. It sends some data to the Darkling blueprint, which then plays some sound effects and progresses the tally of the event and some stuff like that. So that's kind of how that's working. There was quite a bit to figure out and do. And then in terms of the actual meshes and stuff, this was also another thing I haven't done before. I used AnimToTexture, which is a plugin built into Unreal Engine. So first I created a skeletal mesh in Blender. So this is the first character like I actually just modeled myself. Before I was relying on assets, largely because I didn't want to spend too much time with custom animations. But in this case, I sculpted this thing, and I have a couple different options with different horns. But I sculpted this thing, and then I created 2 different animations. So it's not too like refined or polished, simply because of the material that I'm using in my game is this like void-based material. So it didn't need to be too precise or anything. Once I import the animation, I have this AnimToTexture utility script and a data asset here. You have to set up all this stuff, 2 different animations. This is the skeletal mesh, which is not being used. It's only being used to generate the anim texture. And you basically take the skeletal mesh, convert it to a static mesh, input the animations you want, create these textures that it writes to. And if I open up one of these textures, it is very small. It's a strip of data, 6 by 151, which kind of depends on how much data is being written. So it's 7 kilobytes for this one. So these are all very small. You can see bone weights, rotations, positions. And the material is from the plugin, but it has this like layer parameter stuff. Master material has all this this stuff here, which creates the animation. Not really sure how, but it was very cool to use this plugin to create these like floating characters, and it's all texture based and runs on the GPU. So the Niagara particles are on the CPU. These animations playing are on the GPU. So that's cool. It was a nice little learning experience. And I had to do some sound editing to get some creepy sounds. So we got so I always do sound at the end, and I just go and audition, bring in some sounds, and do a lot of different effects and reverb and modulation and pitch changes, get some stuff that sounds pretty creepy. And then with the AI characters, if I hit play here, I have it all kind of playing out in my test level. We've got the spooky guys, and then we have the fox and the wolf here. If I hit P for the nav mesh, it's generating the nav mesh as they run around. They also turn into these like particle things. Since they're spirit based, they have like abilities to get around quicker as well. These characters stay near the particle system and just run around randomly and cast their ability. They're not actually like targeting any specific particle. They're just randomly casting things. But the radiuses are big enough where it does like kill them. Just makes it look cool to have friends help you out. But getting all that running was also some additional tech. So if I go to my AI, I have a behavior tree, and I added this branch to the behavior tree. I had to create a custom like move node, which since they can't focus on an individual enemy because it's particle based, I created this like move near actor, which the Darkling thing, that's an actor, a blueprint actor. So they move near it instead of like targeting something, whereas you can follow a specific actor and stuff like that. But now I don't want them targeting the system, which is stationary. I want them to like move around it. And then cast this ability called Light Bomb is actually, I just kind of threw in a random selection of two different abilities. 0 and 1 are two abilities the characters have, and they just randomly choose one and cast it. So yeah, that was that. And then when using either of those abilities, I have some dialogue that can be played. I had to come up with some lines of dialogue. That was another addition, which I didn't have planned out originally. I have some voiceover collections here, which are basically data assets for the companion and the vixen. And in the data asset, I have 15 lines of dialogue that are currently not, there's no sound, but I have the line of dialogue, and when the sound gets recorded, I put that here and change some other stuff. Right now I just have this generate subtitle only. That will change to a different event, which it'll play the sound file, the VO. That's kind of a deep dive into a lot of things and where we stand at the moment. I've really just held off on marketing because since the game is so far out, I didn't want to pursue it that aggressively right now. A lot of my early attempts was to gauge reactions and try to ensure I was on the correct track with things. And then 2025 was a bit of a black hole for marketing. I had some comments on Steam like, is the game dead? After this big tech push of new stuff, I wanted just a small break, do this devlog, update everybody on where we stand. Maybe, if I'm lucky, more than 100 people will see this. My last devlog only had like 86 views, some subscribers, but, doesn't really seem worth the time just to have like less than 100 people check in. But figured give an update for some people, try to throw this on Steam as a video update, and people will know the game's not dead. Is the game still coming? That's encouraging. The demo was pretty good. So regarding the demo, it's in a okay state, but performance is still not great. I've made leaps and bounds further progress, and eventually I need to revise the demo again with the better performance and things. So I'll get to that eventually. But yes, there is a demo. You might need a semi-decent system to play it. You can download it and see how it works for you. I even took a couple weeks accidentally noticing this. I don't really check Steam or anything too frequently. I'm just trying to get the game closer to complete, and then I'll be more in tune with all of the social media sites. I only have enough time for, so much stuff. But that's the big update. So next devlog, probably sometime in 2026, and might be well into Act 5 or finishing Act 4, or who knows at that point. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.